Chapter 10, Animal Tissues. Now in the last lecture, we had started with animal tissues. Basically, we had studied muscular tissue. In muscular tissue, we had studied about smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Today, we are going to study the third type of muscular tissue, which is called as nervous tissue. Now, when we see nervous tissue is composed of nerve cells or neurons and neuroglia. You can say this is the nerve cell. So nervous tissue, basically where this nervous tissue is found. Nervous tissue is found in the central nervous system, or which is called as brain. Okay, so this nervous tissue is composed of nerve cells. This is the structure of a single nerve cell, which is also called as neuron. And it is also made up of neuroglia. Now, neuron is a structural and functional unit of nervous system. All the electrical impulses which are created in the brain, like how you respond to the stimuli. If I prick a pin on the skin, or if I come to slap you, you raise your hand to stop me. That means the slap or the pin, that is the stimuli, and what you respond, okay, or the pain response when a pin is pricked, that response is called as respond to the stimuli. All the signals, they are controlled by the neurons. So neuron is basically the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. This is the neuron, which carries electrical impulses. What is neuroglial cells? Neuroglial cells, they are non-nervous cells or non-nervous supporting cells that fills in the interneuronal space. That means neuroglial cells, they are just the supporting cells. They are not involved in any kind of what you can say response, okay? But they are just supporting cells, and these supporting cells, they fill up the interneuronal space. Interneuronal space means what? This is one neuron. There may be another neuron. Many neurons are present in our brain. Okay. So the gap between the two neurons, okay, the gap between the two neurons, that is called as interneuronal space. And where are these neuroglial cells present? In the interneuronal space. That is the gap between the two neurons, that is called as interneuronal space. The neuroglial cells are capable of regeneration and division. The neuroglial cells, they are capable of regeneration. Regeneration means what? They can be produced, they can be repaired, they can be regenerated. Okay, they can be replaced, they can be repaired. And they are able to divide also. But neurons are not capable of regeneration and division. Why is it so? Because neuroglial cells consist of centriole in them. Neuroglial cells has centriole, okay? And because of centriole, they are able to divide and regenerate. That means repair and regenerate, okay? But neurons cannot be divided or regenerated. Now, when we see a structure of neuron, this is the single neuron, okay? We'll study about the structure in detail. Now, the neuron is made up of cyton or cell body, okay, which contains granular cytoplasm. Now, when we see a structure of neuron consists of a cyton or cell body. Can you see this star-shaped structure? This star-shaped structure, this is called as cyton. Here, this part is called as cyton. It is also called as cell body. Now, in the cell body, what is present? A centrally placed nucleus and a cytoplasm. This is the cell body. Neuron basically consists of a cell body. It is also called as cyton. Cyton consists of a centrally placed nucleus, and it consists of cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, it is also called as neuroplasm. The cytoplasm of neuron, this is called as neuroplasm, and it has a centrally placed nucleus. What does neuroplasm has? Neuroplasm contains mitochondria, It consists of Golgi apparatus, RER, that is rough endoplasmic reticulum, and it also has measles granules. Okay, can you see these granules all over here? These are called as measles granules. Now, cell body, it gives out two processes. The cyton, this part is called as cyton or cell body. Now, this cell body, it gives out two processes. Can you see this branches-like structures? These branches-like structures, these are called as processes. So from the cyton, you can see two processes are given out. These are called as dendrons. Can you see this? Naming is given dendrons. So these are called as dendrons. These are the anterior branches, whereas, and these are short branches basically. So dendrons, they are short branched processes, and its fine branches are dendrites. You can see these are dendrons. Okay, these branches are called as dendrons. And again, dendrons, they give out again small or fine branches. And these fine branches, they are called as dendrites. These are dendrons. Again, it gives out fine branches. These are called as dendrites. What is the function of dendrites? Dendrites, they carry impulses towards the cyton. Impulses, what is the meaning of impulses? Message in the form of electrical impulses. Messages from the different parts of the body. Okay, so they carry impulses, that is messages in the form of electrical impulses or electrical charge, you can say, towards the cyton. That means from the different sensory organs or from different organs towards the cyton. That means from here somewhere from the body towards the cyton. The other process given is axon. We had just studied that the cyton, it gives out two processes. First is dendrons and the other one is axon. You can see this entire structure. This is axon. Now axon is single elongated cylindrical process. Okay, you can see it is single. Okay, and it is elongated and cylindrical structure. It is bound by exolemma. Can you see this exolemma? Okay, here they have shown in detail about a single axon. Okay, or the structure of axon. So axon, it is bound by exolemma. This is the axon. What is exolemma? The plasma membrane, or you can see the covering outside the axon. The protective covering outside the axon. You can see this middle one is axon, and the protective covering outside the axon, that is called as exolemma. Now, axon is covered by a fatty sheath. Okay, the protoplasm of axon is exoplasm. Can you see this protoplasm? Okay, the protoplasm, here is the protoplasm, the living cell. Okay, so this entire is the protoplasm. The protective covering was called as exolemma, whereas the cytoplasm of the axon is also called as exoplasm. Now, axon is covered by a fatty sheath called as myelin sheath. This is axon. Yes, so axon, it has an outer covering. Okay, this outer covering is the myelin sheath. Can you see this? This is axon. Okay, and axon, it is covered by a protective sheath which is called as myelin sheath. Now this myelin sheath and neurolemma are parts of squamous cells. Okay, outer covering of myelin sheath is called as neurolemma. This is neurolemma. Yes, getting it? So this is the myelin sheath, and outside the myelin sheath there is one more covering which is a protective covering which is called as neurolemma. So this neurolemma and myelin sheath, they are a part of special cells which are called as squamous cells. You can see this is one squamous cell, this is another squamous cell, this is third squamous cell. Okay, so you can see that axon, again I'm repeating, axon, this entire part is axon. Axon, it is a single elongated structure. Axon is covered from outside by a protective covering, which is called as exolemma. You can see this is axon. Okay. The protective covering is called as exolemma, whereas the protoplasm, the middle central part, this is called as protoplasm. This is called as protoplasm. So the protoplasm of axon is called as exoplasm. Exoplasm is covered by protective covering, which is called as exolemma. Again, axon is covered by a fatty sheath, which is called as myelin sheath. Here you can see axon is covered by a fatty sheath, which is called as myelin sheath. The myelin sheath, in turn, again it is covered by a protective covering, which is called as neurilemma. Now, myelin sheath and neurilemma, they are a part of special cells. The name of the special cells is Schwann cells. Now, the myelin sheath is not continuous. You can see this myelin sheath. It is not continuous, but it shows certain breaks. Can you see one break over here, second break over here? So the break is seen at certain intervals. So these intervals, they are called as nodes of Ranvier. This is one interval, second interval. So you cannot see myelin sheath as a continuous sheath, but what you can see certain intervals. So these intervals, they are called as nodes of Ranvier. Why it is called as nodes of Ranvier? Because it was first seen by a scientist, or it was first discovered by a scientist called as Ranvier, and hence the name nodes of Ranvier. Now, based on the function, neurons are classified into three types. Okay, based on the function, they are classified into afferent neuron, efferent neuron, and interneuron or association neuron. Now, afferent neuron, what do you mean by afferent neuron? Afferent neuron, it carries impulse from the sense organs to the central nervous system. Now, when we see, this is the TS of spinal cord. Okay, brain, it has gray matter, white matter. Okay, and you can see a nerve is formed from the dorsal root ganglion and the central root ventral root ganglion, and you can see nerves are formed over here. This entire you have in 12th standard in central nervous systems chapter. Okay, so what does this afferent neuron does? It carries impulse from the sense organ. Let us consider this is your skin. Okay, if I prick a pin to the skin, you feel pain. Yes, so the pain impulse is carried by sensory neuron. So sensory neuron is also called as efferent neuron. Okay, so what does this sensory neuron does? It carries the pain impulse, that is the message of pain. It carries the pain impulse from the sensory structure. Let us take here in the skin, and then the pain message is given to the brain, that is central nervous system. So it is also called a sensory neuron. It is found in dorsal root of spinal cord. The spinal cord, when we take transverse section of spinal cord, we see that it has two main parts, dorsal root ganglion and ventral root ganglion. So the sensory neuron is present in the dorsal root ganglion. Next is efferent neuron. Now, efferent neuron, it carries impulses from the central nervous system to the sense organ. You can see this is the central nervous system. Okay, just now we had seen. So it carries impulses from the brain to the sense organ. Okay, it carries impulses from the brain to the sense organ. Here, just now we had seen that if we prick a pen, okay, your skin have irritation. Okay, so that pain is carried to the central nervous system. But here, in case of efferent neuron, what happens? The central nervous system gives the message or impulse to the sense organ, that is to the skin. It is also called as motor neuron. Where it is found? It is found in the ventral root. Upper was the dorsal root ganglion. Below is the ventral root ganglion. That is the ventral root ganglion. It carries impulses from the central nervous system to the muscles or to the brain, to the skin, sorry. Next is interneuron or association neuron. Now, what do you mean by interneuron? This is sensory neuron. Yes. And this is motor neuron. Okay. Motor neuron means what? Carries electrical impulses, that is message from the brain to the muscles or to the sensory organs. Okay. Or effector organs, you can say muscles. So so in between the sensory neuron and ventral and the motor neuron, you can see this is the interneuron. It is also called as association neuron. Why it is called as association neuron? Because it helps in transfer of electrical impulses, that is message from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. Okay, and as it is present between the sensory neuron, that is efferent neuron and afferent neuron, that is why it is also called as association neuron. That means it helps to transfer the electrical impulse from the sensory to the motor, or either from the motor to the sensory. These perform, now what is the function of association neuron or interneuron? These perform processing. Processing means what? These perform processing. Processing means what? You can see that most of the, what you can say, most of the functions, just like learning, memory, all they are controlled by the, all they are controlled by the interneurons. Okay. So interneuron, okay. So most here you can see, and also integration of sensory impulses. Integration means what? Integration, that means it helps in processing. Okay. Now when we see the neurons, they are also divided into myelinated or medulated nerve fiber and non-medulated nerve fiber. Now what exactly is myelinated and medulated nerve fiber? Myelinated nerve fiber, they have an insulating fatty layer called myelin sheath. Whenever the axon, this part is the axon, just now we had seen. Now whenever the axon has myelin covering, okay, that is myelin sheath outside the axon, that is called as myelinated nerve fiber or medulated nerve fiber. They have an insulating fatty layer. Insulating means what? They help in quick transfer of electrical impulses, and hence they are called as insulating fatty layer, called as myelin sheath. These makes fiber appear white in color. Always remember, myelinated or medulated nerve fiber, they are always white in color. The sheath is secreted by the squamous cells. Squamous cells are the special type of cells, and these squamous cells, okay, they are responsible for secretion of this fatty sheath. The sheath is not continuous, as we had seen that in between the sheath there are intervals, and these intervals, they are called as nodes of Ranvier. So it is interrupted at nodes of Ranvier. Conduction of impulse is faster in myelinated nerve fiber. As I said that it is an insulating fatty layer. Insulating means what? It helps in fast transfer of impulse. So that is called as conduction of impulse is faster in myelinated nerve fiber. Example, where are they found? They are found in cranial nerves of vertebrates, are all myelinated. Cranial nerves. Cranial nerve means what? All the nerves arising from the brain, they are called as cranial nerves. So all the cranial nerves, they are myelinated. Next is non-myelinated or non-medulated nerve fiber. What do you mean by non-myelinated? When they do not possess myelin sheath, when the axon do not have insulating fatty layer, that is called as non-myelinated or non-medulated. They are always gray in color due to absence of fatty layer. In the previous we had seen that fatty layer was present, and that is why they appeared white in color. But in non-myelinated, they appear gray in color due to absence of fatty layer. Conduction of impulse is slower in non-myelinated fibers. As no fatty layer, we know fatty layer, it basically helps in insulation in case of nerve fiber, that is quick transfer. But here, as it is not present, the fatty layer is not present, that means the conduction of impulse is slower. Where are they found? They are found in nerves of autonomous nervous system. What is autonomous nervous system? It is the part of nervous system which basically controls involuntary activities like heartbeat, respiration. Okay, so they are all included in autonomous nervous system. So the nerves which arises from the autonomous nervous system, in them non-myelinated or non-medulated nerve fiber is present. Now, based on the number of processes given out from cyton, neurons are of three types. First, we had seen according to function. Okay. Now, according to how many processes are given from cyton, neurons are classified into unipolar or monopolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and multipolar neuron. What do you mean by unipolar neuron? It has a single process originating from cyton. This is the cyton part. Just now we had studied that neuron consists of cyton and axon part. Okay, axon. Okay, but here what happens from the cyton, they have a single process. You can see this single point. Okay, and from the single point, you can see axon also coming out and the dendrons also are given out. Two processes are given. One is axon, other is dendron. But how do this axon and dendron originate? From where do they originate? They originate from a single process. This is the single process. And as they develop from a single process, such is called as unipolar neuron. Both the axon and dendron arises from the cyton at one point. You can see this is a single point, this is the one point. And from one point, both axon and dendron arises. What is the function of unipolar neuron? They conduct impulses to central nervous system. That means they carry electrical impulses. They carry messages in the form of electrical impulses to where? To central nervous system. Next is bipolar neuron. Bi means two. So it has two processes. Which are the two processes? Again, axon and dendron. Okay, here, this is bipolar neuron. It has two processes, axon and neuron. But here, the axon and neuron, they arise from the opposite poles of cyton. You can see, this is the cyton. Yes, this is the dendron and this is the axon. They appear or they develop in the opposite manner, from the opposite poles. In unipolar, they appear from a single point. Yes, from a single point, dendron and axon were given out. But in bipolar, what happens? Axon and dendron, they are given from the opposite direction. And third one is multipolar neuron. In multipolar neuron, just now we had seen many diagrams of structure of neuron. So in multipolar neuron, what happens? Cyton is star-shaped. You can see cyton is star-shaped and many processes are given. You can see many dendrons are given. Yes, and it has only one axon. It has only one axon, but many dendrons are given. So when many processes are given, you can see this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4. So when many processes are given, but they have only one axon, such type of neuron is called as multipolar neuron. So I hope you understood with the nervous tissue. I stop my lecture over here. Thank you.